Hello and welcome to this lecture. And in this lecture, I actually want to discuss a very important concept about creating this web crawler. So what we are essentially doing in this web crawler is that we are actually saving all the links in these two files. And the reason why we have two files is that we basically want to avoid duplicates. And in order to avoid duplicates, we are going to compare the new link with the links in the crawl.txt, and if that link is actually not present, we are actually going to put it up in the queue.txt file. Now the main issue with this thing is that these files are actually going to be present on a hard drive, which is nothing but the hard drive of your computer. And the problem with that is basically whenever a program needs to open up a file from a hard drive, it's actually going to consume a lot of time in doing so. So what happens is that it's eventually going to slow down the program, and hence our code is going to take a lot longer to execute the Python code. And if you are actually crawling a lot of links simultaneously, then it absolutely becomes inefficient to do so. So what we need to do is that we actually need to find a better alternative to this thing. So what we essentially do is that instead of using these text files, what we do is that we first convert the contents of these text files and save them into some different data structure. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to use set as a data structure, which we have already learned. So set is basically a data structure which is going to store a bunch of items, and what we are going to do is that instead of working with these files, we are actually going to work with sets, and the operation, that is the read write operation with sets, is going to be extremely efficient, because unlike these files, the variables or the set variables are actually going to be stored on your computer's RAM. So obviously the RAM is going to be much faster memory as compared to your hard drive. So what we are essentially going to do is that we are essentially going to save a lot of computation time on this, and it's highly going to affect the performance of your code. So what we need to do now is that we need to form two functions. The first function would actually go ahead, take the contents from the file, and it's actually going to put it up in a set. Now we could use this set in the duration of the code or in the duration of the program, but once the set files are changed, you again need to save back those changed files into that particular file. So we also need a function which would take contents of the set and put them back into the files as well. So let's now go ahead and first make a function which would actually take the contents of a file and put them up into a set. So let's go ahead and make the function quickly. So let me just go over here and let me just type in the function name as, let's say, def. This is going to be file to set, and you obviously need to pass in a file name over here so that it gets that which file do you want to get. And what we are going to do is that we are going to create a new set which is going to be called as results. So we type results over here. So results equals set, and in here what we are going to do is that we are going to open up a file first. So we type with open, we are going to pass in the file name, we are going to open up in the RT mode as f, and once the file is open, we are going to loop through each and every line in the file. So we type for line in f, and for each and every line we are going to put up that line into the result. So we basically want to add that line into the result set. So we type results.add, and once this thing is done, it's basically going to take all the contents of the line, and here you need to pass in a line. So what this is basically going to do is that it's going to take each and every line and it's going to add them in the result set. And one more thing which you need to do is that you don't actually want to count the new lines, which is basically the /n. So in order to avoid /n, what we do is that we type .replace, and here you need to specify what you need to replace. So we basically want to replace /n, give a comma, and then you need to specify with what particular thing you need to replace a /n. So we need to replace it by nothing. So we post single quotes over here with nothing inside it. So what this means is that we actually want to replace a new line with a blank space. So once this thing is done, the final thing which we do is that we return the results. So we type in return results, So what this function is going to do is that it's actually going to take up a file. It's actually going to create a result set. It's going to open up a file, read each and every line in the file, then add each and every read line into the result set, and then finally return us the result set which we could eventually use. So this is what the function is going to do. Now this was a function to basically copy the contents of a file into set. Now let's write the exact opposite function that's basically going to copy back the set contents to the file. So we type def set to file, and this is actually going to accept links and the file name. So once you have these two things passed in, what you could do is that you could open up files by typing with open, that is going to be file name, comma, open up in a write mode as f, as we are going to write contents to the file, and then again type for l. So let's take a variable l for line, then you could type in sorted. And the reason why we are using sorted is because we want to make sure that the links are sorted in alphabetical order. So here we type in links so that it actually passes up those links, and then finally we actually need to write those links. So we type f dot write l plus, and then you need to include a /n so that each and every link is on a new line. So once this thing is done, we are pretty much good to go. So we have basically completed the set to file function as well, which is basically going to take all the links. It's going to take a file and it's going to add those links to that particular file. So once this thing is done, we are pretty much done with the two functions, which is file to set and set to files. And I hope you guys were able to understand the significance of these two functions. That is why these two functions are used. So the main purpose of creating these functions is just to basically speed up the execution of your code. You could also completely ignore these functions, but that's actually going to make your code much more worse. It's not going to perform up to the mark, and it's going to be relatively slow. So what I recommend is that you understand the significance of these two things, because whenever you are writing big program, time is always going to be a crucial factor to consider. So that's it for this lecture, and with this lecture we are almost done creating our functions. So in the next lecture, what we are going to do is that we are going to create a new file, which is a Python file, which is actually going to contain the code which is going to find the links from a web page for us. So right now we haven't even visited a single web page, so we are going to do that in the next lecture. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.